You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Welcome to Making Data Simple, although I think we may need to change the title at some point because we talk about everything around technology, whether it's augmented intelligence, whether it's design, as we're going to talk about today, whether it's Spark like we did last week, but I guess data is still the center of the universe, so Making Data Simple still applies. So thank you for listening. As always, please give us some feedback. Today I have Rena Ganga with me. She's a senior user designer and augmented reality designer at IBM. We got Jenna Goldberg, who's an augmented reality software designer at IBM, and we'll get into augmented reality. There's a lot of augmented reality going around here. But they both work in AR, i.e. augmented reality. Both have strong backgrounds and passion for user experience design thinking practices, and we're going to hear from them, but their main focus is using AR to improve the way people act with or interact with data, and which is my favorite subject, of course, and ultimately to make data exploration, the process more efficient, to help people present their findings in more intuitive and engaging ways. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself. Rena, why don't I let you introduce yourself first? Welcome to the show, guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, Al. Yeah, thank you so much for having us on today. We're really excited to be here. As you said, Jenna and I both are designers working on an augmented reality product for IBM, and we focus particularly in data visualization.
Nice. Go ahead and give me, what's your background, if you don't mind saying, and I'll give it to Jenna.
Sure. I actually came from a background in journalism.
So journalism, I'll get back to that. All right, let's go to Jenna first, and I'll come back to you because I got some questions on that. Jenna, go ahead and introduce yourself if you would.
Hey, I'm Jenna. Rena basically introduced the product pretty well, but I've been at IBM for about a year and a half now, including my internship, and my background is in math and game development.
Math and game development. So are you a game player?
No, and that's why I didn't stick with game development.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you start out in game development?
No, that was just kind of what I did as my minor in school, as my focus. And so I liked working with the game development software, but I just wanted to use it for something other than games. So that's why AR was really helpful and very similar.
All right, very good, very good. Well, so I'll jump right in. I know a little bit more of your background, Rena, so I'm not going to let you get off that easy. I'm going to ask you a few questions. So I'm feeling pretty good today, I have to say. Spring is starting to come around the corner here, so just getting a little heat feels good. Now, you guys, I think you're both in San Francisco, or you're both in San Jose?
Yeah, so we're both in the Bay Area. I'm actually based out of the San Jose office, and Jenna is in San Francisco.
So you guys have had, it's always sunny there, right? Well, I guess in the winter it's drizzle most of the time. But then it's already sunny. It's been sunny for weeks, right?
It's definitely warming up, at least on my end. I don't know, San Francisco is always a little chilly though, right?
I gotta say, it's been raining here for about 3 months. But we have random sunny days.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what Mark Twain, I'm going to butcher this, but says the coldest winter he ever had was the summer in San Francisco, something like that.
I've heard that.
So, all right, Rena. So I'm not going to let you off that easy. All right. So, I did look at your LinkedIn real quick, and one thing that caught my eye, and I thought we'd start with this, if you don't mind.
Sure.
As a formal, this is what you stated. As a former award-winning TV news reporter and online journalist, I've made a career out of answering the question, why? It's the same innate curiosity that drives my passion for good user experiences. I notice things, I'm bothered by things, I'm compelled to make them better. That's a pretty good opening. And it went on, by the way. I'll stop there. But so my first question today for you is, what is making you say why today? I mean, what are you questioning right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's interesting that you raise all of this because, you talk about data on your podcast, but design is something a little bit different. And I think for those that aren't familiar with design, there's often this impression that it's perhaps a bit of an artistic endeavor, but design is really a job about problem solving, right? We're solving a problem for a given user or an issue. And in our case, we focus on augmented reality, and we are looking at data visualizations and how can we make, a job easier for, in our case, data scientists and business executives, people that work with data closely, and how can we improve their workflow. And so, what you said about curiosity, that's a huge driving force in journalism, and it is in design as well. I think it's never just about what we're doing, but why we're doing it. Why does something matter to someone? Why is it relevant? Why are we tackling it now? So being curious and inquisitive is, really fundamental to the design process.
The interesting thing is, and this goes where I was originally going to go in my questioning, at least to start, and then I want to dive into AR. I want to design and dive into visualization as well. But the interesting thing, you guys are both designers, have strong communications, of course. It's much better than mine, by the way. But the interesting thing I thought is I see it with the technical foundation. Like, Rena, when I was looking at your background, I know you were in communications, but you went to the University of Technology in Sydney. And then, Jenna, you have a BSA in applied mathematics. So I thought that was interesting. I'll get with you and Jenna in just a second. But Rena, I know you went right into communications. You went right into some TV work, and like you said, you were award-winning. What brings you here? What drew you here back into technology or into technology, and where you are today in terms of designing and on the forefront of AR?
Yeah, I think it really is just that passion for wanting to solve problems. And, journalism was one medium for that, and technology is another medium for that. When you're a journalist, you spend a lot of time piecing together stories from different sources, and all the people that you speak to will give you a different piece of the truth, and through all of that you really learn how to sort of connect the dots, right? You see the bigger picture, but at the same time you're always focusing on where is that hook, where is that news angle. And in design, that really translates in terms of being able to sort of grasp a domain quickly and recognizing the pain points that a user is facing, and identifying those ones that you can really have a huge impact upon with your designs. So, I'm always focused on the user. That's a big part of what we do.
Did you seek out design, though, or did it just fate kind of bring you into design in terms of your interest? How did you end up, from being live on TV to being a designer and on stage with us at our Think conference?
Yeah, I suppose there's a little bit of fate. I also did work in online journalism as well, and through that I ended up wearing a lot of different hats, in terms of content creation, but then also user research and design and, various different aspects related to web design. And so I started developing an interest in different pieces of that process and realized that this was something I was really passionate about. So I followed that.
Nice. Look, I'm sure you're much smarter than me, but there's one thing you got that I absolutely don't have. You've got that Australian accent. That's what I need. Nobody wants to hear a Midwest accent. You know what I'm saying? Everybody likes Australia, UK, whatever. And here I am doing a podcast. There's something wrong with me. Hey, Jenna, on your side, did you know you were always going to go into technology? Because you did have a BSA in applied mathematics, but what brings you here?
I guess the only reason I was a math major is because that was just what I knew I was good at in high school. And as it got harder, it wasn't as fun, and I was missing that creative side of myself. I found design eventually after visiting IBM during college, and I just felt like it was a really good combination of creativity and problem solving. So that's kind of when I started doing my minor, which was the digital arts and media. And that kind of brought the two together, and the more I grew in that, the more I learned that math and design actually go together pretty well. So.
Well, the digital arts and media I get, and that really aligns with design, but I got to believe, I don't want to put answers in your mouth, but the applied mathematics really brings it home, particularly in the business that you're in today. Do you agree, or do you say, it's a nice to have, but it's not, I don't know what I want to say, that it's not a key in the business? I got to believe it is.
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot, because in a lot of ways it's not a direct application. Like, I'm not using all these equations that I learned, but I would say that it definitely taught me that every problem has multiple solutions or multiple ways to reach the same. There are multiple ways to reach the same solution. So it just kind of taught me how to consider multiple factors at once and push through a problem even when everything kind of feels like a mess. And I definitely say that a lot of people think math is an individual study, but I learned throughout college how important it is to collaborate and see things from different perspectives, and I think that's something I use every day in design.
So when I went through electrical engineering, obviously it has a lot of math, and the one thing I've often said is it teaches you how to think or problem solve.
Yeah.
And look at things in different ways. And I got to believe you're doing that on a daily basis.
I got to believe that too.
So IBM's putting enormous pressure on design, or importance on design, as it should. And as I hold responsibility for development, that means, I hold responsibility for data and AI, so we have a lot in common in terms of common interest. I will say is I work with my design friends. We sometimes have a love-hate relationship. I love you guys, but we're always going back and forth in terms of trying to make the product usability, consumability, reliability, everything great. And that's often a tug of war. But I wanted to open that up and say, why do you think design is so important? And, I'd like you to talk a little bit about your day as a designer. I mean, what are your mission objectives on a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean, design is really critical because at the end of the day, if you create a product and it doesn't solve a problem for the user, or it doesn't enhance the way they do their job, they're either not going to use it, or they're going to sort of have to force their way through using it if it's the only tool that's available to them. So really, we play an important role in facilitating the interaction between the actual tool that they're using and the human that's on the other side of that tool. And, I guess to sort of relate it a little bit to what we do, with data visualization, there's always a balance that we have to find between giving our users a lot of control with the tool that they have versus, say, overwhelming them with a lot of different options. In our particular case, for instance, our end user is a data scientist or a business analyst. So we have a very sophisticated end user, and this is someone that needs a really high degree of control over their tools. But at the same time, as designers, we play an important job in thinking about how do we nudge that user towards making sort of the right choices when they're working with their tool to end up with that optimal visualization for their needs.
Nice. Anything to add from that standpoint, Jenna?
I think Rena put it really well. I think design is a lot about making it an actual enjoyable experience for them to use versus something that they have to use.
So I think you guys are spot on. Not that I'm just, Homer here since I have you on my podcast, but I can tell you the reason that I highly value design. One is I'm a huge fan of the design thinking process. I'm the kind of guy, I think, because, I am that engineering background. I do a lot of mind maps and stuff like that. Design thinking process helps a lot. But where it helps from my standpoint, or where I really value design, is that it's looking at client value versus product functionality, if you will. And if you know what I mean by that, it's like a lot of times I'll talk with offering management, I'll talk to developers, whatever, and I'll ask them about, like, our OpenScale product, and they'll talk to, it does explainability, it manages models and essentially AI, but they're describing what it does versus the client value in terms of the client value, or the what do I want to say, in terms of like, rooting out bias and how prevalent bias is in the system, how that impacts the bottom line, and how that can help you drive better models, hence better revenue, etc. It's kind of like, I don't know, this is probably a terrible analogy, but it's like your backup camera in your car. If you talk about it, say, hey, these backup cameras are pretty cool, so you can see behind you, look at what it does, it can zoom in, it can zoom out, it can warn you. And then, most people are intrigued with it. They say, oh, that's pretty cool. You say, hey, you want to pay more for it? No, I'm fine. I can back up by myself. But then when you go into it and say, yeah, but if you look at it and you look at what the statistics are of people backing into other people and causing wrecks, and the impact or the decrease in your insurance policy if you have that camera, all of a sudden it becomes a must-have. I don't know if that's probably, I probably butchered that as well, but I really see design really focused in helping a very technical environment orientate itself towards client value. Do you see it the same way, or is there anything in that diatribe that I just gave that you challenge?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think design definitely plays that role of advocating on the behalf of the user. It's easy, when you're in a business environment to get lost in sort of what's going to generate revenue, where can we make money, where's the next big thing. But you also have to focus at the end of the day on what is the user struggling with, what is going to help them, what are they saying they need, or maybe they don't even know what they need, but it's your job to sort of help figure that out and help figure out how you can create a product that really solves a problem for somebody. Because if you're not doing that, then, do you really have a useful product?
Yeah, we got a lot of technical folks that do some great things, but sometimes they get lost in their own in their own ability, if you will. So I think you guys perform a very important function. But let's talk about augmented reality. That is where your focus is today. Why is that your focus? Is again, luck just landed you here, or were you directed here by your own passions? I mean, why augmented reality? You want to take that, Jenna?
Personally, what got me into it was the software that we use in augmented reality is the same as gaming software. So I was familiar with that, and I had a short internship where I was using augmented reality to help people build custom homes. And I just thought it was so cool that you could see this entire house that you created yourself on an iPad, before making any decisions. So that's kind of how I got into it, and I feel like AR sort of blurs the line between these devices and humans, and it's just kind of helping us get in touch with that digital side that we really need to do our work, but not taking us out of our environment. And I think that's kind of what our product revolves around.
So fair enough. What about you, Rena, in terms of what products are you working on that fit into the augmented reality space that we're describing today?
Yeah, so the product that Jenna and I are both focused on at the moment is called IBM Immersive Data, and it's an AR visualization tool for data scientists and business executives to be able to explore data. I think data science, it's a really complex field, as you can imagine, and data exploration, it's a time-consuming process for data scientists. So we are really focused on how can we speed up that process. So with our product, a user can pick up a phone or a tablet, and they can launch a visualization into the room that they're in, into their environment, and they can really step into their data. And through that experience, we hope that they're able to really see patterns and relationships in the data much faster than they would otherwise be able to, and really kind of drill in on that important information that's most meaningful and relevant to them.
So what's the difference, Rena, between augmented reality and virtual reality? I mean, are they the same? Are they different?
They are different. So virtual reality essentially puts you in a completely simulated environment. So you would have to put on a headset in order to experience it because it blocks out the world around you. AR is different in that it enhances or augments, as the name implies, the real world. by adding in digital objects that you can interact with as if they were real. And so, as I was saying, since AR is really blending the digital and real world, you can experience it either through a headset or through a phone or a tablet.
So here's how I envision virtual reality. One of these days, I'm going to have like 50-yard line seats at the Super Bowl, but I'm going to be sitting at home, and I'm going to look over, and there's going to be Jack Nicholson sitting right next to me. I'm going to say, "What's up?" And then augmented reality is just the same thing, except now I've got my data. Got nobody to talk to there, but I can look at the data in unique and different ways, see it differently, and find insights that I wouldn't see before. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think part of it is looking at it in a different perspective. Instead of being behind a computer screen, you are physically interacting with it, and so that just having that different perspective might allow you to see something that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. But I think the other half is really the time. I think data scientists spend a lot of time trying to find these insights, and with the ability to see it in 3D and interact with it the same way we interact with our everyday objects, that just makes everything more intuitive and leads you to these insights faster.
I'm sure a demo and putting that headset, so to speak, on is the best way to see the value here. But Rena, tell me, can you walk me through it? Let's say I'm going into the 3D data visualization. What do I see? What do I get out of it? And what do I get out of it that I couldn't get from just traditional methods?
Yeah. So, I think there's a couple of things here to break this down a little bit. I would say at its core, this is really about making 3D charts useful. I would argue that 3D data visualizations are just fundamentally broken. They're hard to use on a computer screen. Data points can be hidden behind other data points. They can be obscured. But it's really tricky and clunky to rotate a visualization on a computer screen to really get that full sense of the data. So a lot of people just end up avoiding 3D charts, right? Even though they want to visualize multiple dimensions in their data sets, they kind of find a way to bludgeon the data into 2 dimensions and end up using a bunch of 2D visualizations for their analysis. But we are really thinking about, what if we can make 3D charts as easy and as useful as their 2D counterparts? And, this is where AR comes in. It gives us that ability to take a type of data visualization that's generally avoided and really make it shine, really make it a star. And I know, you're asking here about what can you do in AR in 3D that you can't do in 2D. And I think another fundamental thing that you can do is you can just see more information at once, right? So if you think about data visualizations, the reality is that no single data visualization provides the entire truth. There's always some level of data abstraction that takes place when you create a visualization. So if you're building a visualization, you keep information that's relevant to you in a particular context, and you eliminate information that doesn't matter to you. Essentially, you're making choices, right, about what to include and what to leave out. And you're right, Al, it's really tough to talk about visualizations without images. It's a fundamentally visual medium. So let me try to give you an example that hopefully our listeners can sort of picture in their minds. Okay, let's think about something really simple like a world map. So we've all seen a world map. And in fact, we've probably seen many different kinds of world maps. And that's because cartography has always had this challenge of how to present geographic information, right? And that's really because the world is a sphere and maps are flat. So what some maps do is, they try to show fixed latitude and longitude lines. But what ends up happening is the poles get stretched out. So countries that, they're really small, but they're close to the North Pole or South Pole, like Greenland, end up looking huge on these maps. And regions close to the equator, like Africa, look much smaller than they really are. And then other people have tried to get around that issue, and they create maps where they show all of the different land masses as the correct size relative to one another. But doing that means you end up distorting the shape of the countries. So what's interesting here is that both of those maps are technically correct. They're just different versions of the truth. And, of course, which one you find useful depends on what your objective is, like what your goal is in looking at that map. But the point is there are always trade-offs when it comes to data visualization. But with 3D visualizations, with augmented reality, you have that ability to show more dimensions at once. You can show a bigger piece of the truth. So, with something like World Map, you can really start to imagine how if that was in 3D, if that was in AR, you could represent it spherically, like a globe, like a physical object, and then you could really get a truer sense of the data.
This is very good. Thank you for that. So look, where can people find more about what you guys are doing and working on if they want to contact you guys?
If they search IBM Immersive Data on YouTube, they can see some videos about the work that we're doing. And I think that seeing some visuals is the best way to illustrate exactly what we're working on.
Definitely look up our videos online, and Rena and I are both on LinkedIn and Twitter, so people can always reach out there as well.
So I think this is again, when you're talking about virtual reality, whether you're talking about augmented reality, you almost got to experience it to see the value that you can get. And I can attest to both these experts that there's a ton of videos out there that we've done on them on YouTube. I know you guys often, or I know, Rena, you had some on your LinkedIn profile just as well. I think that's the best way if you're listening to this and you want to get a better understanding of exactly what we're talking about, go out there and have a quick look at it. If you guys are game, I'd like to take 10 more minutes and have a little bit of a lightning round in terms of the day of the life of your your business, etc. Are you willing?
That's
sure.
A bit more personal?
Yeah.
Everybody likes this. Hey, Jenna, I saw on your profile that you like music. What's your favorite music?
Oh gosh. I love R&B.
R&B. Give me a song. Can you give me a song?
Like Drake and The Weeknd and Rihanna, Beyonce. Those are my favorite artists.
Nice. All right. I got it. I even know those songs, so that's a bonus. Rena, what about you?
Oh gosh, music?
Yes. You're not a music fan? No music for you?
No, I'm so out of the loop these days. It's terrible.
All right, then I got another question for you. What do you do for fun then?
As far as hobbies, I really enjoy board games. It sounds like a bit of a geeky thing to do, but I really got into all of those European strategy games. I don't know if you know Settlers of Catan, but I'm a huge fan. And then besides that, I just enjoy doing activities with my kids. We're really lucky to live in the Bay Area, and we get incredible weather here most of the year. So I like to just try to get outside with them as much as possible.
So I'm ashamed to say I don't know that game. Was it Settlers of what?
Settlers of Catan.
I need to look this up. What's the strategy? I mean, what's the premise?
You're basically competing for resources. Different kinds of land resources, and you have to strategize. I think one of the great things about a game like this is, with something like Monopoly, you're sitting around for hours waiting to lose, essentially. With a game like Settlers, there's a lot of strategy involved, and, you can always come back from behind and overtake other people. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Nice. I'm going to have to investigate this. I've never looked at Monopoly that way either, but now that you that is kind of the premise. What about you, Jenna? What do you do for fun?
I love going on hikes and going to concerts and doing yoga.
Doing yoga. Where are you originally from?
I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Dallas. Oh, that explains the Texas, the Longhorns, aren't they?
Oh yeah, that was my favorite.
and where are you originally from, Rena?
I'm originally from Sydney, Australia.
Oh, wow. I think Sydney. I didn't know where in Australia. I've been there once. Beautiful place. But you left it, huh? You came to the States, huh?
I know. But the Bay Area reminds me a lot of home, so.
Sounds good. So here's a question for you guys, and I'll start with you, Rena. Who's your role model today? I mean, what is, not related to you, a role model that you could cite?
I think that's a tough one. I don't know that I have a particular role model. I think, I work with a lot of incredibly talented folks at IBM that, I really admire and respect and learn so much from every day. So, those are the people who I tend to look to. I kind of find I'm often more influenced by my environment or by places. As I just mentioned, I'm from Australia, and I've done a lot of traveling, so I often feel like those environments shaped me and my approach to design and life in general a lot more. So yeah.
That's fair. Jenna, what about you? Role model you have?
Sounds cliche, but I would have to say my dad, because he just taught me everything I know about my work ethic and about pursuing something that you love and doing something that makes you feel good every day. He's 65 and he's still doing his job, so I want to be like that.
What's he do for a living?
He's a gum surgeon.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. All right, very good. So what advice, switching gears a little bit with you here, what advice would you give to another young lady that's considering technology or design?
I would say that as much as it seems like everyone knows exactly what they're doing, technology itself is a huge mystery that people are just kind of plugging away at every day. So I feel like for anyone that wants to pursue it but doesn't know if they're qualified, just put on a smile and act like you know everything and do your best to find answers to everything.
Fake it till you make it. I like it.
Yes.
Very good. So Rena, you mentioned you have children. How do you balance motherhood with all the demands of tech and design?
It's definitely a challenge. I think any parent would say the same thing. If you have to wear a lot of different hats and juggle a lot of different balls, but it just comes down to being organized, being efficient, and ultimately, if you really enjoy what you do every day, I mean, Jenna talked about doing things that you're passionate about, and I think if you can come to work and enjoy what you do on a daily basis, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like this is my hobby, this is my passion, and so I think that makes life a lot easier, right, when you enjoy what you do every day.
Is there any piece of advice for those listening or habit that you have or kind of, I don't know what this, I guess habit's the right word, what you do every day to be able to keep things in balance?
Well, I like to try to take time for myself by reading, and I think that it works in two ways in the sense that it allows me to keep learning and keep growing, but then it's also just a great form of relaxation. So 2 birds with 1 stone.
All right, so I got one more question for you, and then I'm going back to Jenna with the same question. So Jenna, you get an added advantage here because you can listen to the question. So you say reading, and that's one thing I always typically end with, and it's a 2-part question kind of. It's how do you learn, and if you are reading, which clearly you are, is there a favorite leadership book or a book that you would recommend to the audience?
Yeah. So as far as books. Let's see. I mean, I think for those who are listening that maybe don't know a lot about design and that's something that they're interested in, I would recommend The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. This is a book that is really a classic in the design field. I think it was published almost 30 years ago, so really before all of the technology that we have today. But the interesting thing is it's still relevant because, the principles of good design haven't changed. And I think after reading that book, you won't just look at websites differently. You end up looking at the world around you differently. And then I think another book, maybe for more of the data folk that are listening, something I found really thought-provoking was Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom, who's actually a philosopher. And this is really interesting. It raises the question of what happens when we reach the point where artificial intelligence surpasses us and becomes smarter than humans. And, it really talks about the ethical dilemmas. And as a designer, I found it really fascinating because it makes you think about the biases of AI and the motivations of the program and how we really need to think carefully and design with purpose, with intention, in order to avoid some of those potentially devastating unintended consequences of, AI that runs amok.
Wow, nicely done. See, now I got 2 books, right, that I can read. Very, very good. How about you, Jenna?
I got one more for you. When I visited IBM my freshman year of college, I was told to read Change by Design by Tim Brown, and that really inspired me because it was just about how design can be infused into all aspects of life and business, and I learned a lot from that.
All right, so that's great. So now we've got augmented reality. We talked about design, and now I got actions to walk away with, and that's the books that you gave. So thank you guys so much for being with us today. I greatly appreciate it. I think the listenership is going to get a ton of value from this. So we will put all this information, as always, in the show notes and where folks can find about you, find out what you're working on, solicit any information that they'd like. And with that, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. It was a great time.
See y'all later, and talk to you next time on Making Data Simple.
Thanks for listening to the Making Data Simple podcast, where we make data fun. Be sure to visit IBMBigDataHub.com/podcast to access the show notes and uncover even more great episodes. Remember, the views expressed here are those of the host and its guests, and do not necessarily represent the views of IBM. Until next time, over and out.